I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard NOC Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV. Yeah.
Welcome to Hard NOC Life. I'm Keith Chow.
I'm Britney Monet.
I'm back. Thanks for holding it down last week.
Of course. I had a lot of fun talking with Liam about Spider-Verse.
Yeah, Spider-Verse. So I didn't get a chance to share some thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse. I will just say a couple of things before we lean into the big topic this weekend, which is the movie that dethroned Spider-Verse at the box office, Transformers: Rise of the Beast. But let me just say one thing about Across the Spider-Verse, that Oscar Isaac has the Marvel Triple Crown now.
Oh, I did. I thought I said that.
Well, I think you guys were kind of debating who's been in a couple things. He's the only actor to hold it down in not just the Disney Marvel universe. He's in the Sony Marvel universe and the Fox Marvel universe. A couple of people have come close, like Chris Evans has been in both Fox and Disney, never did a Spidey or a Sony. But I guess Sony only owns Spider-Man. So I was racking my brain all week after listening to the podcast, who else has done all three? I can't think of anyone who's done all. Josh Brolin's been in two, but he's not done any Spider movies. It's a short list. I guess Aaron Tyler Johnson, he's going to be in a Spider, but he's not the Fox Quicksilver. Because I was I forgot he's not. Evan Peters is the Fox Quicksilver. So even he hasn't done.
But
all three versions.
Yeah, Evan Peters has done two as well because he kind of played.
That's right. He was in the MCU.
Yeah,
but he hasn't done a Spidey movie.
No. Yeah,
Haley needs to be. Well, here's the thing. There's never going to be any more Fox movies. So it's a small list of people now.
Yep.
Who've been able to do Fox, Sony, and Disney. And Oscar Isaac, he's got all three.
Yeah.
In fact, he needs to do a Star Trek movie, because if he does that, then he's got all the sci-fi movies on lockdown too, because he's been in Dune and he's been in Star Wars. He just needs to be in Star Trek, and he's got all three major studio sci-fi franchises out the way. So cast Oscar Isaac in a Star Trek.
Cast him and everything. I'll show up.
Oh, that's true. Cast him in everything. It was one of the best movies of the year already. And it's unfortunate that The Flash, which I'll talk about later, is coming out next week in the wake of Spider-Verse, because this was true even when the first Spider-Verse came out. The Flash is a multiverse movie that is coming out 3 years too late for multiverse movies. And it's only going to be compared to the other ones that have come out, like Spider-Verse, like No Way Home, like Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because the Flashpoint story arc predates all of them. And this movie was supposed to come out 5 years ago. So in fact, it looks like DC's aping Marvel, but it's the other way around. But that's DC's lot in life.
Poor DC.
But yeah, we'll talk about The Flash later. I do want to talk about the movie that came out this weekend. Speaking of alternate timelines, you saw Transformers: Rise of the Beasts?
Yes, I did.
Now, before we get started, are you a big Transformers fan? I know that the cartoon predates you by a couple years, but the movie franchise in and of itself has been, something in the air for a while.
So I've always known of the cartoon as a kid and knew what Transformers were. I just was not into it like that, where I could named off who the Transformers were and stuff until I saw the movie with Shia LaBeouf. And then I've only seen the ones with Shia LaBeouf.
Is that the first three?
Yeah, I think so. And I never got to see, every time I've wanted to see Bumblebee, the one with Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see it when it was out in theaters, because I think my money was just not the best at that time. I just never got around to watching it on when it's on HBO or whatever. So every time I need to watch this movie, I still haven't. So I plan to, because I really did like this one that just came out.
Well, and that's the thing. Rise of the Beast is the sequel to Bumblebee, which, even though the producers have all been saying Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast are prequels to the Michael Bay movies, they're not. These are straight up reboots. The characterizations and even the designs of the Transformers themselves are much closer to the original cartoon action figure designs, and not the Michael Bay kind of over designed, as someone who's been a lifelong Transformers fan, I did not like the Michael Bay movies because I just did not recognize who the Transformers were.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like they were these giant chrome monsters that all looked the same. Like you couldn't tell them apart. But then when they were like fighting, it was just big CGI shit fests. And with Bumblebee, why I would recommend you go see Bumblebee is it took it back. Not only did it take it back to like the 80s, kind of like, you know, it felt like an 80s movie because it's kind of like about a girl and her alien robot, kind of in the ET vein, you know, which is why, like, even if it had nothing to do with Transformers, I think you would like it just for that fact. They go back and it's like, it's wholesome and like heartfelt and emotional, which I didn't think any of the Michael Bay movies were. You know, they were just spectacle and kind of like camp almost, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, well, at least I can only compare like The Rise of the Beast to the ones that I have seen. And I will say that this movie felt like it had more heart and more like there was story and spectacle and it flowed really well. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for me too.
Yeah. My full disclosure is that I was never big Beast Wars fans. Beast Wars kind of came after I had already kind of moved off of Transformers altogether. And for me, even Transformers is there's so many versions of Transformers. There's the old cartoon, which is, you know, affectionately referred to as Generation 1 or G1, which is what I know the most, right? That's when I was a kid. But then there's like G2 and Armada and Prime and like all these different versions, and the comic books all have like, there's like not one, you know, continuity to follow. It's like multiple continuities. So that's one thing that the movies got going for them. You can always just like, they're all just basically alternate versions of the characters. But Beast Wars was like a 90s cartoon that was, do you remember Reboot, that cartoon in the 90s?
No.
It's like, there was this period of time. And again, this is the early 90s when I'd already kind of moved off of like kid stuff. You know, we all go through that phase in high school where like we put away childish things. And it's not until we become adults that we like start going buying back all those toys and comic books. At least that's my story. There was like a whole period where I was like, I'm too old for this shit. And then I spent my entire adulthood like buying it all back.
Yeah.
There was this like short period in the early 90s when like every cartoon was CG, but not CG the way we think of CG now, right? It was like very early 90s kind of like Microsoft Paint version of CG cartoons. Do you remember watching any cartoons like that back in the day that were like these like computer generated monstrosities?
I think the one that I did watch was like this weird futuristic show, and I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah. Like even the Christians had like Veggie Tales. You remember that?
Yeah. I remember the Veggie Tales.
So it's like that, like very rudimentary kind of like CG designs that was like at the time seemed futuristic as shit. But like you look back and it's like, oh, it's not advanced at all. That's what Beast Wars was to me. And I know there's a whole generation of kids who grew up on Beast Wars, and that was like their shit. That was their Transformers. And I don't, and you know, I will say that like, I feel like as a first going, like this is the first time the Maximals have ever been shown in live action. I feel like Beast Wars fans got exactly what they wanted their first go round more than us G1 fans got with the first Transformers in 2007. Because I think Primal and Cheetor and Rhinox and Air Razor, they all kind of are basic reflections of their original versions. And you know, if this was the very first Transformers movie for someone, I think this gets at what a Transformers movie should have been more so than even the Shia LaBeouf. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. I can't say anything on Beast Wars because I never knew they were a thing until I think we were looking at talking about the trailer for this movie. So I never knew that was really like a thing as a kid.
Yeah. Why is there a gorilla in this, right?
Yeah. Okay. There's gorilla Transformers. That's where my mind was going until you were like, oh no, it was a whole like other franchise. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, you had other ways in for this movie in particular, because as a big Hamilton fan,
yes,
or as Anthony Ramos, and also you're Pete Davidson's biggest fan, at least his biggest fan who's not currently dating him at the moment, right? I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm next in line. Don't be surprised.
No, we will not be at all. So what did you think? And they're the core relationship in this. It's kind of like, you know, when you see Bumblebee, the relationship Bumblebee has with Haley Steinfeld's character is basically Anthony Ramos and Mirage in this one. And it's the Shia LaBeouf and Bumblebee in the first movie, right? Like there's always the one human character and the one Autobot that have a bond. And again, I think this one and the Haley Steinfeld Bumblebee one, they do it the best. Like they center the story around the humans, but they don't make it only about the humans, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like them. Mirage is really funny. I forgot it was Pete for a second because I remember we had talked about it. And then I had to look it up. Like, who is that? I know that voice. And I was like, oh my God, it's Pete. Yeah, no, I thought it was great. And I love that. Is his name Christian Hernandez from Ted Lasso?
He's a Wheeljack.
Yeah, like I recognize his voice instantly. I always call him by his character on Ted Lasso, Danny Rios. I was like, it's Danny Rios.
And there was a funny bit between him and Ramos' character Noah's, like he notices the Spanish accent.
Yeah. He was like, oh, that's racist. And he's like, how's that racist? You're a whole robot. Like that part was really funny. But yeah, I know. I thought the movie was so fun, and I loved the relationship between Noah and Chris, which is Anthony Ramos's little brother's character. I really loved seeing that a lot. That was very cute how they called each other Sonic and Tails. And then Dominique was so great. Like she's
Dominique
so
Fishback,
yeah. Well, she's good in like everything I've seen her in. So it's nice to see that she's starting to get more like action-y roles too and fun roles too. Because I mean, she's a great actress, but like it's nice to see her doing movies where she's probably gonna have a bigger paycheck because she deserves it.
Yeah. And I also love the trend of the female lead not being, and no shade to Megan Fox. You know, Megan Fox is great, but you know, Michael Bay did not treat Megan Fox like a true protagonist, right? She was eye candy. And for, like the first 5 or 6 Transformers movies, the female lead is always meant to just be eye candy, unfortunately. And with this and with Haley Steinfeld in the last movie, like they allow the female leads to be complex characters too, not just like pretty faces, which is progress for
which is nice. But I also think in some movies, not necessarily like the recent Transformer movies, but I feel like in general now there's this trend of like, okay, let's just completely remove like the romance. When it's like sometimes it makes sense for the characters to have romance. Like it's this weird like I understand you're trying not to like zero in and make a female character all about being the romantic interest, but also at the same time, it's like, it's okay. Romance is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So I feel like there's this weird like.
And there's a difference between like the two leads becoming romantic and like the camera ogling Megan Fox's abs for like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference. It's not that women can't be sexual and can't be romantic partners. It's that the director shouldn't be fetishizing the women in his movies. That's what Michael Bay was having a problem doing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's unfortunate because Megan Fox is such like a great actress, actually.
Transformers kind of like ruined her reputation because like people dismiss movies like Jennifer's Body because of
great.
Right. And not only people realize it after the fact, because in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, she was just seen as like Maxim girl and not like a great actress. And that's partly because of the way Transformers was her big break. And that was, again, Michael Bay, like, look at this hot chick and not look at this great actress, you know? One cool thing about Transformers Rise of the Beasts, having Anthony Ramos in the lead, and he does more than just be like human, right? Like there's even a portion of the film where he gets to be a hero too, but like not just, you know, running around, but getting like an exoskeleton suit that Mirage gives him, which is not a spoiler. It's in the trailers. And that's part of Transformers lore. Like the human characters in the cartoons used to get like exosuits that they would wear. And so that's kind of cool that like he gets to full on be like a superhero. And what's interesting is that the month of June, like 3 weeks in a row, you had Latino superheroes at the center of the movie, right? Like, of course, Across the Spider-Verse features Miles Morales and Miguel O'Hara, right? And Oscar Isaac, we were talking about earlier. This movie has Anthony Ramos in his superhero pose. Next week, Sasha Calle's Supergirl. Like, and then I'm pretty sure we're getting a Blue Beetle trailer in front of Flash. So it's kind of like a, you know, watershed moment for Latino superheroes at the movies.
Oh yeah, yeah, which is about time because it's just like I feel like, especially in the United States of America, that you know Latinos make up such a huge portion of our population, and yet they're so underrepresented in film and TV. And I haven't seen it yet, but I know Flamin' Hot is out too, which is about the guy who created the Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Right. And that's directed by Eva Longoria, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Which I've heard it's actually really good. So I'm looking forward to checking it out. So if you're looking for more Latino, Latina, Latinx. There's a huge debate now about Latinx,
Right.
so I don't know what's the right thing to say now.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Right. Like but again, it is such a great time, and it just, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but like I was thinking about that when I was watching The Flash and watching Rise of the Beast and just thinking, wow, it's kind of cool. Like there was a period where it seemed like the Latin characters were just invisible, and particularly genre films, other than Oscar Isaac, apparently, right? Like he's the only one that was like representing. But and you can also throw in Pedro Pascal. He's not in the movie, but like, with The Mandalorian and The Last of Us, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's more and more Latino representation in these genre projects, which again I think is sorely needed for so long. So it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that there is starting to be more representation for everybody. And then also Michelle Yao.
That's right. She was Airazor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the voice actors were really good in this. Ron Perlman was Optimus Primal, Michelle Yeoh as Airazor. Of course, we talked about Pete Davidson as Mirage. Like, I'm hoping like the Transformers franchise continues in this path, because like Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast are a great 1-2 punch as far as like, if this is what the Transformers movies had always been, I'd have been a fan from Jump Street. But I liked the first Transformers movie enough. It was kind of, it was particularly at the time, it was like just being able to see like the CG advance in such a way that you could have realistic versions of these robots in disguise. It just kind of devolved over like 5 or 6 movies, where it just became like sillier and sillier and dumber, and the Michael Bay of it all.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen the ones with Mark Wahlberg, so I can't really like.
I think they get even dumber with the Mark Wahlberg ones. Like,
yes, which I did laugh at the joke they made in the movie about him too.
the Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, like this can't be a prequel because, anyway, unless it's very meta that Marky Mark becomes the protagonist later. And I don't want it to be a prequel. I want it to be its own branching universe, because it doesn't have to be tied into the.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with it being like a soft reboot, basically.
Yeah.
Especially with that ending. I was like, oh,
let's get to that, because the one thing that I didn't see coming, and spoilers for the very end of Rise of the Beast from this point on, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled, pause the podcast, go see it and come back. But the very last, it's not even a credit scene, it's like the scene before the credits, is one of the more mind-blowing aspects of the film, and I'm not sure where they're going to go with it. So basically, one of the hooks of the movie is that Noah, Anthony Ramos's character, is trying to get a job, and he can't get a job for various reasons. One probably being that it's the early 90s and he's a person of color. That's probably the main reason he can't get a job.
Yeah.
So by the end of the film, after he saved the world with the Transformers, he gets a job interview with the actor Michael Kelly, who you may recognize from a lot of things. Like, he was in Man of Steel, he's in House of Cards. He's always playing like the kind of gruff, like secret government guy.
Yeah.
And he's not playing any recognizable character. He's just like, typical kind of, again, secret military guy. And he's getting a job interview, and he somehow knows that Noah has just saved the universe with the Transformers. And he's like, how do you know all this? And he's basically saying, you know what, if you come work for us, we'll take care of your brother. Actually, he says, we'll take care of your brother anyway, because you saved the world. But think about it. Come work for us. He gives him a card, touches a plaque on the wall that says Real American Hero, which should give you a hint. And the doors open. There's like a giant ass hangar with all these futuristic vehicles. And Noah flips the card over. What's the card say?
G.I. Joe.
G.I. fucking Joe.
And I was like, what? I was like, what? I was like, what's? I was like, okay. So they're both Hasbro toys, though, right?
It's the Hasbro Cinematic Universe. They are now.
Okay.
It's the HCU. They are now starting. My question is, okay, Snake Eyes flopped.
Yeah,
but,
I haven't seen that still. I feel so bad.
Well, it flopped because Britney didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, there's no, I can't remember if they set like a time period that Snake Eyes was supposed to be. Like, was it a 90s? I'm trying to think back, what technology were they carrying around? Like, it could have been set in the 90s. Or are they going to fucking reboot G.I. Joe again? Because they've already rebooted G.I. Joe 3 times.
I mean, it might, because, I have no idea why else they would just be like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, G.I. Joe.
Now, the G.I. Joes and the Transformers have teamed up in comic books in the past. Like, it's not that far-fetched that you would blend the two franchises. I would say that, like, it'd be interesting if G.I. Joes are in the Transformers sequel, or if the next G.I. Joe movie stars Anthony Ramos. They could go either way.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be G.I. Joe Transformers crossover next movie. It could just be whatever the next G.I. Joe movie is, Anthony Ramos is the lead. And the reason I was bringing up Snake Eyes is that, like, as poorly as Snake Eyes did at the box office, I just think it would be cool to team up Anthony Ramos and Henry Golding in a movie together.
I would love to see those two on screen together.
You know, you could say perhaps that, like, again, I can't remember if they set any time period for the Snake Eyes film. You could get away with saying that it was taking place. I mean, it's a Snake Eyes origin movie, so you would stand to reason that it would have to take place in the past, right?
Yeah.
So you could say by the time Anthony Ramos's characters in the G.I. Joe franchise, Henry Golding's already full form Snake Eyes. You could have them team up in a movie with no Transformers. Like, you don't even need the Transformers in the movie yet, and then build up that version of G.I. Joe, and then you do your G.I. Joe Transformers crossover.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe the end of the G.I. Joe movie with Anthony Ramos is you see a tank that transforms into Megatron, and that will tease the crossover in the next film.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
You know, so I think it could be cool. We'll see. I mean, Rise of the Beast did pretty well at the box office. We'll see if it sustains. But, you know, Hasbro's been trying to get G.I. Joe off the ground, and maybe this is the best way to do it. How did your theater react when they flipped the card over? Did people care?
I don't think so. I think I was the only one who went, what? Or who, like, or at least I was the only one who was, like, vocal about being surprised. So if anyone else was surprised, they weren't vocal about it. I
mean, I think one thing that hurt, honestly, is that the character Michael Kelly was playing, he wasn't anyone recognizably G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Even when he leaves, he doesn't say, like, you know, and by the way, I'm General Hawk or anything like that. He was just like, think about it. Like, who is he? He's a nobody. He doesn't, like, even if you're not tying this into the original G.I. Joe movie continuity, if it was Dennis Quaid, who was in the first G.I. Joe movie, or, you know, I mean, can't be The Rock, because The Rock's having some problems lately.
Yeah.
It's not a good year to be The Rock. But someone from, like, the G.I. Joe movies might have helped the excitement a little bit. I don't know. Again, maybe not enough people give a shit about the G.I. Joe movies.
I don't know.
His character in and of itself wasn't enough to get me hyped that G.I. Joe's next. You know what I mean? Because there was nothing about him that screamed G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I hope that then, yes, they will do with, like, bringing Anthony over into G.I. Joe and go with the idea basically you said, because I think that makes the most sense. Because then now people already I'm sure most people like this Transformers movie and they like Anthony Ramos's character, so it would be smart to go in with the character now that people like. And build around then, and even if it's, you know, gonna have to do a little bit more work to get people to be on board with especially general audience who doesn't know really anything about G.I. Joe, like, you know, to get them involved. Like, that's the best way now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, even if, like, again, with the Snake Eyes movie wasn't as popular or as successful as I had hoped it would be, because, you know, I've long supported Asian Snake Eyes, and we finally got the movie and it was trash, and that kind of sucked. And, you know, I still will support it just because it's what I've always asked for, and I don't want people to think, well, see, we got an Asian Snake Eyes and it tanked and we will never get Asian Snake Eyes again. But, like, even someone from that movie, like Samara Weaving played Scarlet, if she was the one recruiting Noah at the end, that would have been a better tie-in than just, like, random white dude. No offense to Michael Kelly, like, he's cool and he's in all the trailers, so it's like, okay, he's somebody important, but he could be any military official. What makes him G.I. Joe, you know? Yeah. But I geeked out at it. I thought it was a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah, I forgot for a second that they were from the same toy line. So I was like, yeah, Joe, what? Really? Okay.
It wasn't quite Sam Jackson at the end of Iron Man, but
no.
And I don't know why they were being so cagey not showing Mirage in the mid-credit sequence. It's like, why are they trying to, like, keep that a secret, like what he's going to look like in the new version? I mean, maybe that was kind of weird. Like, but overall, would you recommend people go see Rise of the Beast?
Oh yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's especially if you want, like, a fun summer movie, I would definitely recommend this one. You don't there's not so much of like high stakes as I would say, like saying Guardians or Across the Spider-Verse, which both of those movies are really great. But if you want something that's more fun and you don't have to like worry about all the implications of everything, then yeah, go check out this movie.
And once you get a chance to see Bumblebee, I'm curious to see how you react to that film, because again, this is clearly the spiritual. I mean, it's the one technical sequel to Bumblebee, but it's also in the spirit of Bumblebee, where again it's much more heartfelt, much more emotional, and less silly and less kind of like over the top like the Michael Bay ones.
Yeah.
And the robot designs are great. Like they nail what the robot designs should be in these versions of Transformers more than in any of the Bay movies, where they're all, again, just kind of like look the same. They're just like metallic. Whereas here, each robot has character. Even the bad guys, they're Terracons in this one. They all exhibit different characteristics. I will say, you mentioned Wheeljack earlier. If there was one, I don't want to say complaint, but if you know anything about the original Transformers cartoons, they really changed up Wheeljack's look. He's like a race car in the original, and he's got a very distinctive like face mask and like ears look. And I'd be okay with like the change in design if he was like more prominent in the film, but he's kind of just like a background character. He doesn't do a lot. And I was like, if he doesn't do that much, you could have named him anything.
Yeah.
But the minor complaint, I mean, in the Bay movies, Wheeljack is completely different from his cartoon version too. So now I'm getting a little too Transformers nerdy, But anyway, yeah, totally check out Rise of the Beasts. And I hope it leads to Anthony Ramos in a G.I. Joe movie. And then we'll get the crossover in like a third movie.
Yes.
And that'll be cool. So, all right, well, let's take a break. And on the other side, we'll see what's nerd popping. So, Brittany, you're a big fan of Paramount Plus, aren't you?
Oh, I am. Indeed. That is the home of one of my favorite shows, which I know some people, I've talked about it.
Yeah. You're not the demographic.
I know I'm not the demographic, but the show I'm talking about is obviously Yellowstone. If you don't know, I love Yellowstone, and it's literally one of the most like, I'm saying, I know a lot of people like, oh, it seems like it's for like rednecks or something like that. I promise you, the drama is so good. It's just, and if you're a fan of Twilight, there's like an actor from Twilight that's on there.
Well, it's one of the biggest shows in the world.
Yes.
And it's got these like great spinoffs, right? Because isn't 1923 a spinoff of Yellowstone, and 1883? Am I getting those years correct?
No, it's 1923. I'm not there yet on the spinoffs.
But it's got like Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Like,
yes.
That's crazy that those are like actors you get for TV shows.
Tim McGraw and Faith Hill are on the 18 one, if you are a country fan, which Tim McGraw is honestly a really great actor. I don't know if you've ever seen Friday Night Lights, but he's a great actor. So they're great. Those are great things to check out. I have to wait for my mom and brother to watch it because we are such a fan of the show. Teen Wolf is also on Paramount Plus, and they released a new movie with Tyler Hoechlin is in it and back. So I'm excited to watch that finally when I get around to it. I know it's been like 2 months now, but it's hard to coordinate our schedules.
Well, the reason we're bringing up Paramount Plus is that if you click on the link in the description to this podcast, you can actually stream Paramount Plus for 1 month for free. We're just excited that we get to share Paramount Plus with all of our listeners. So click on the link that you see in the description and stream Paramount Plus for free for a month. Try it. If you don't like it, you can cancel. But if you love it, if you love Yellowstone, Teen Wolf, Star Trek, all of the Star Treks are on Paramount Plus. Do that, and you'll help us out in the process. So, Brittany, what you got going on this week?
So this is really kind of like a cool little, I guess, history fact. I don't know what you call it. But it's 30 years since the first Jurassic Park movie came out.
Wow.
I feel old. But it's one of my favorite movies. I always quote he left us a lot. So yeah, I had like, it slipped my mind that it had been 30 years, and I remembered, wait, Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Are they doing anything special for the anniversary?
I'm not sure, but it's been 30 years. You should watch Jurassic Park, the first one. It's so good. And I think that's one of the best, like, in modern film, like the animatronic being used so well. Like, oh gosh, You know, they look so real. I remember as a kid being like, "Oh my god, dinosaurs are real."
I mean, the CG holds up. I have the first movie on 4K, and the scene where Alan Grant like looks over the Jeep, I think, and then in the distance is all the, I think, is it the brontosauruses in the distance?
Yeah.
It still holds up, and of course the T-Rex at the end.
Yeah.
It's amazing that movie came out 30 years ago.
Right.
It changed the game.
It really did.
John Williams' score still holds up. Has John Williams written a score that doesn't hold up? Like,
honestly, from what I know at the top of my head, no. He's just, he's the GOAT.
He is the GOAT. So what's nerd popping for me? Last week, I got a chance to see an early screening of a little indie film coming out in a couple days called The Flash.
Okay.
So I've seen The Flash after, speaking of 30 years, it's been probably about 30 years since a Flash movie was announced. But full disclosure, and I feel like everyone has to say this when they talk about this movie, no one supports, no one condones Ezra Miller's actions. They should be held accountable if those allegations are true. And I think Warner Brothers feels this way because Ezra is nowhere near any of the marketing for the movie. Although Andy Muschietti, the director, has said if it's successful and they make a sequel, he'll bring Ezra back. So,
which I'm like, come on.
I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I will say y'all should go see it when it comes out. I know, again, Ezra disclaimer aside, movie's got fucking Michael Keaton as Batman in it. That is not a spoiler. Everybody knows this.
Yeah, and that's my problem now, is just like, they're going to see the movie did successful. So, yeah, if they bring back Ezra, it's like, okay. But
Michael Keaton is the reason it's successful.
But yeah, like Michael Keaton is probably going to be the main reason why, so it's just.
Michael Keaton should be the Flash in the next one.
Exactly. So that's the thing, is like hard to like say with this movie. Like if this movie does really, really well, it's like it's gonna be probably because of literally almost everybody else in this movie and not because of Ezra. So it's just like you can't, I don't know. And it's not like they're gonna do exit surveys at every single movie of like,
right.
What was the main reason why you saw this movie, So that's the thing. It's like you can't gauge that. So that's unfortunate. Is like if it does well, yes, they're gonna bring back Ezra, obviously, when it's like they should just recast.
Yeah. And like who knows what the future of DC holds? Because I will say this, and this is not a spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
The movie doesn't necessarily set up James Gunn's version of DC either. Right? Because like that was everyone's expectation. Even James Gunn says it in his Gods and Monsters announcement. The DCU, it will be reset after The Flash, and that'll lead into Blue Beetle, and that'll lead into Aquaman. And it's like, okay, but then after seeing the movie, it's like, did it though? Did it really like set up James Gunn's version of DC? I'm not sure it did. So yeah, I mean, everyone else will know this weekend when they go see it. Again, I don't want to give away any spoilers. There's a lot of things. It's very difficult to talk about The Flash without spoiling. In fact, you may have seen on YouTube, I posted a video of Swara and myself reacting to The Flash, and it is very difficult to talk about The Flash without giving away a lot of like the cool stuff in it. Like what we were able to talk about is what you've seen in trailers. It's Flashpoint, essentially. Barry goes back in time, finds a younger version of himself, and I'm using him for Barry, not for Ezra. And in that alternate version of history, Michael Keaton is Batman, and they have adventures with Michael Keaton's Batman and Sasha Kai is Supergirl, and they fight Zod. Like that's all in the trailers. But there's more to the movie than that. I will say that like I wish, and you're very smart, Brittany. I think I give you a shout out. Like not watching all the Flash trailers, you'll be even less spoiled, because I feel like having seen every trailer for the movie, kind of was able to piece together the movie before seeing the movie.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, again, that are still surprises, but like there are a lot of beats that I was like, I saw that coming just because I saw the trailers.
Yeah.
And all like the big like geek out moments I could have had in the theater, I had it silently because I'd already done the big geek out when I watched the fucking trailer.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like your approach of like, all right, I'll watch one trailer and then like no more is the right way to go.
Yeah, just because a lot of they say they're teaser trailers, but a lot of the teaser trailers give you like a good idea of exactly what's gonna be going on, where you don't where you don't really need to like watch any other trailers. So that's why I've been avoiding them, and especially anytime they like release special clips from the movie. Like
100%.
I didn't like for Guardians, I didn't watch the one that they released with Lila and Rocket. Like I purposely didn't watch it because I was like, no, I want to like see the movie, and it made me enjoy probably the movie much more than someone who had like watched all those little clips and stuff. So it does help to not watch all the trailers. The only movie that I've seen the more than one trailer for is the Barbie movie, is just because again, they haven't really given away too. I feel like with those they've actually really had a genuine teaser trailer and then the like main trailer. So I still feel like, okay, even though I don't know, that's not as what I would say. I guess it's not like the same as like Guardians or The Flash, where I feel like the whole movie's in the trailer, or whatever. I don't know.
But even then, with that, I feel like the second one is a little bit more story driven. That like, I guess you could guess from the teaser that like Barbie escapes into the real world, but like the second one is like, okay, that's the story. But even then, they do a good job of not. Like, I still don't know what that movie's going to be like.
Yeah.
And that's what a trailer should do.
I'm so excited. I really want to do a double feature, though, of that and Oppenheimer.
Of what?
The other movie that's coming out that day, Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The Christopher Nolan movie. I was going to say, like, would be an interesting... Well, I guess he's not playing exactly the same character, but Will Ferrell seems to be playing a version of the character he played in the Lego movie.
That's what I thought too.
So that would be a cool double feature as Lego movie. I mean, they're both like toy properties, right? About toys kind of coming to life. So like Lego movie Barbie, I think would be a good back-to-back double feature.
Yeah.
So anyway, check out The Flash. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, everyone knows our feelings about this movie and the DCEU. I said this in our YouTube review as well. Ben Affleck is probably the best version of his Batman in this. And it's if he's good, if this is how he goes out, I think it's a good way to go out. Because for the spoilery version of the review, check out Hard NOC Life next week. Swar and I will share more thoughts about The Flash, and then after that, hopefully Brittany, you'll see it by then, and we'll catch up on it when we come back. But before then, how can our friends find you on the internet?
You can find me at Hi Britney Monet on Twitter, Instagram, and Hive and Tumblr. And then also you can check out my other podcast, Lituation Room, at litroom_podcast. Hey, I did it.
Well, the bit is dead. We can no longer do the bit of Britney doesn't know her podcast social handle. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_chow, and on Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color on every platform you can, and go to hardknockmedia.com to find this and all the podcasts in the Hard Knock family. Give us a rating and review if you do. Find our videos on youtube.com/the Nerds of Color. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/the Nerds of Color. That's it for Hard NOC Life. Until next time.
I heard Marky Mark is becoming an actor.
What's he gonna do without the Funky Bunch?
I don't know.
Well, he's more than meets the eye, Marky Mark.